Hey everyone, so in today's video, we're going to be talking about 11 things we couldn't do in Bloxburg in 2016. So a lot of you joined Bloxburg around 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. There weren't a lot of players before 2017. Bloxburg was really small, and joining it just felt cozy. You kept seeing the same people and stuff like that, and then it blew up. But here are 11 things we couldn't do in Bloxburg in 2016. The first one is ceiling lights. I think that's a very important one to mention. We didn't have ceiling lights in Bloxburg, so we were kind of stuck with the floor lights that we have right now as well. All the floor lights that existed in 2016 still exist to this day. So we had the garden light, we had the floor lamp, like the basic one. We did not have a ceiling light version of that. And then we had the table lamp as well. So what people did to light up their houses was actually place floor lamps around just so it wouldn't be so dark. And you can clearly see that in the pre-built houses as well, especially the Bloxington mansion, that a lot of people just used wall lights and floor lights because there weren't any ceiling lights, and your houses were actually quite dark if you didn't place around floor lights everywhere. Now, a good thing was that if you painted your lights in, for example, red, that it wouldn't be as aggressive as now because we did have a lighting update. Back in the day, you could use white for your lights easily and it wouldn't kill you, or it wouldn't kill your house in brightness. That was a good thing. However, we did not have ceiling lights, so we had to put like lights behind the couches, behind the showers. In your bathroom, it was terrible because there was nowhere you could put a light, so people just put counters with a tabletop light on top of that just to have some light in their bathrooms, and it was actually quite funny. I don't think there was room recognition as well, so sometimes when you use the light switch in your bathroom, for example, it would also turn off or on the light in the bedroom next to it because it didn't really have good room recognition, and that was kind of annoying because if you turned on the light, sometimes your entire house would light up, or yeah, just stuff like that. We didn't have the power box, so you couldn't turn off and on the electricity as well if you wanted to. Then number 2 is 5 stories. So a lot of you actually probably were around the time where we could only build up to 3 stories in Welcome to Bloxburg with a roof on top of that. It was always a game pass. It was always the multiple floors game pass, but you could only build up to the 3rd story. 5 stories were added in 2018, 2019. I'm not 100% sure, so would have to check on that, but we could only build up to 3 stories, and a lot of people were angry, which understandably so, but I don't see a lot of houses that are over 3 stories now. It's more of a gimmick, but it's nice that we're able to do that now. And yet still, I see people asking for Coeptus to add 10 stories, which that would be crazy seeing that in Welcome to Bloxburg, actually. And that brings me to number 3. So technically we can build 6 stories because we do have a basement game pass now. That didn't exist back in the day. The only thing you could put in the ground was a classic pool. We didn't have pool depths, so it would be the middle size of the pool, and that is what you got. Basically, that was the only thing you could put in the floor. When basements were added, I was so happy. It was something that I've been wanting for so long, and I'm actually glad that it's finally here, and the way you can make hidden houses now and stuff like that is insane, and I love that. And even though I don't use basements in every one of my builds, I am still super grateful that we have got that. And then number 4 is a more annoying one. That is placing a door on one block or one wall. So if you have like a hallway and there's a tiny little gap where you have like a single space for one wall, so like one square of a wall, you couldn't place a door on that, because I do think like if a wall was one stud, which I don't know, it probably isn't. I'm super bad with like that kind of stuff. But if a wall was one stud, your door would be 1.2 studs. So you'd always need 2 walls or 2 wall pieces next to each other to be able to place a door inside of that area. So a single area would never work to add a door. And so before all that, I think we had, not in 2016, but a little later, we had those windows without the window actually being in it. So what people did was they placed a window and then they added a privacy blind on top of that window so that it would act like a door that would close like blinds, but that was the only solution we had back in the day, and that's what people did to make use of like a tiny space where you wanted a door in, or just remove the wall in between that space. That was an option too, but that's just a little weird, isn't it? And then that brings me to number 5, another Game Pass, advanced placement. We did not have advanced placement way back in the day. However, advanced placement came out pretty soon-ish after Bloxburg released, so it wasn't too much of a hassle. But if you you wanted to go in detail, you couldn't really do that because everything just kind of merged with each other. Building kitchens was terrible because if you have a wall and you wanted to build a kitchen against that wall, the final counter would never fit and you would always have to put it at a little angle, at an L shape. But I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about because advanced placing is still a game pass. So that means a lot of you probably still don't have that game pass. So you probably know what I'm talking about. But once you use advanced placing, you can never go back. Like, honestly, it is such a big deal for me and for a lot of other players that once you get it, it's so hard to work without it. So yeah, we didn't have that back in the day. Moving on to number 6, and that is basic shapes. Now, basic shapes are still pretty new. I think they were released in 2020 or 2021. So a lot of you will probably still remember a time before basic shapes were released, but basic shapes definitely had a big impact on Welcome to Bloxburg. The way builds are way more detailed now than they were before. Like, a lot of players get demotivated seeing other builds, and I completely get that. I get that as well. But before basic shapes, when you built a house, you could really finish it in like 3-4 hours if you did a lot of effort into it. Now, a really good build can take weeks up to months, and it's kind of depressing for a lot of players. However, you still build as how you want to build, and not everything has to be super detailed, but basic shapes and resizing is both a good thing and a bad thing. And I'm actually happy that we got them. However, I still get demotivated seeing pro builders building something that I could never build, and then when I finish my house, I'm like, oh my god, yes, my house is so good. And then I open Twitter and it's like, I should totally delete my house. It just looks like a box, and that's about it. Number 7, you couldn't bulldoze your house. It was so terrible. So we had a button in settings that would remove your entire game data. So it would remove your money, your job levels, your skill levels, basically everything that you had except for game passes. So your entire inventory would be gone and stuff as well. And that was the only way to start over. However, a lot of people, including me, mistook that for deleting the plot that you were on. And we went ahead and deleted our entire account data. So we didn't have any plots that we bought. We lost our block bucks, our hard-earned money, our levels, everything. And it was so annoying and so frustrating, and I'm actually glad that Coeptus removed that button because it probably caused a lot of players to actually delete stuff they didn't want to delete, which I'm actually grateful for that they added that. However, if you did want to delete a single plot, I remember building my first mansion and then wanting to delete it. I actually used an auto clicker to remove all of it because you had to delete like all of your details, all of your walls with clicks. You couldn't just bulldoze your plot. You had to go to the delete button and then click everything to be deleted. So I remember using an auto clicker to remove my builds because it took up so much time. And then you went to like the 3rd floor and there was like a tiny piece floating there, or a lamp floating there, like a spot that you didn't see. And once you finished your new build, you would suddenly see like a light flying around on your plot. And a lot of people just have flying stuff on their plot. I remember a time where I joined servers and there was just like lamps flying on people's plot and stuff like that. It was kind of funny to see, actually. And then number 8, and this was a positive thing, you did not have to pay your bills. We didn't have bills back in the day. Bills were introduced with the parking garage, still my least favorite update to this day. Bills were introduced then. We didn't have bills before that, so your electricity and your water couldn't be shut off. That was a new thing, and I remember the outrage when bills were added because that was such a bummer, and the bills were so high that people just got mad. Now we're used to them. Imagine if you don't have bills and then suddenly you see a thing pop up where it says like, oh, that will be $4,000 please, and that pops up every single hour. You get demotivated from that, but now we're luckily used to it. But back in the day we were so angry when bills were introduced. Then number 9, and that, oh my god, that brings me back, but that was so annoying. You couldn't make a lot of money fast as we can now, for example with pizza delivery. Back in the day, I feel so old saying back in the day, my god, I am actually so old. Anyways, back in the day, you didn't make a lot of money. The best job was pizza baker, if I remember it correctly, and that didn't give you a lot of money. So saving up, for example, for a car would take you like a full day of working. And the most flex thing we had back in the day was that $3,500. I think it was $3,500. The wall TV. If you had that wall TV and people came over, they would immediately know that you were rich and they would ask for money just by seeing that one wall TV. Now we have to deliver 2 pizzas and we get a wall TV. Like, we get the amount for a wall TV, which is so much different than back in the day. I think we got like $40 or something every minute. So if you wanted that TV, you would have to work quite a lot. And that was really such a flex item. And cars were like insane. Like, not everyone had cars. I mean, even a bike, even having the $4,800 bike was something so fancy. And if people saw you driving on that, they would ask stuff like, oh, please adopt me and stuff like that. So yeah, back in the day, it was really, really hard to make money. And that brings me to number 10, and that is driving on the highway. So the campsite, the gas station there, that didn't exist. The map used to be a lot smaller. Now, the map extension, is it worth it? In my opinion, not really, because what did it add? A campsite and a highway. Not really worth it in my opinion. However, what it did change is when the map was a lot smaller, the walls used to be a lot closer to the plots as well, like the walls that go around the map. And it would cast such a dark shadow over a lot of plots where if you loaded in your plot and you would be on one of the plots behind the wall, I call it the wall, I don't know what it's actually called. It's just like a big wall, you know? But if you loaded in your plot behind one of those walls, it was so dark, you guys. Like, building a backyard would be so dark because the shadow cast from the wall would come so close to your house that you would just sit in full darkness almost every single day, except for going onto the street. And there were only a few plots, the plots on the side of the pizza planet, that would give you light, so everyone would try and grab those plots, but all the other plots would cast such a dark shadow on your plot. It was dark times. And then moving on to number 11, and that is actually cooking. Now, cooking was actually easier because you did level up faster. So if you wanted to get your skills up, cooking was so easy because all you did was take stuff out of the fridge, press cook, wait for a little bit, not as long as now, and then your food was done and you got a percentage point for leveling up. Now, if you want to cook, you have to take it out of your fridge, you have to press buttons. If it goes into the oven, you have to wait a long time for it to be done, and then you get the same amount of percentage points for your cooking skill. So it does take a lot longer now to get your cooking level up than it did back in the day, because back then it was really easy. Like, cooking a lobster, for example, took like 40 seconds. Now it takes, I don't know, 2-3 minutes or something like that. So it was definitely easier, and I did want to include that as well. So these are 11 things that we couldn't do in 2016. Some positive, some negative. If you want to see things that we could do in 2016 but not now, let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button and please subscribe.